Good afternoon, Providence High School. Good afternoon. Happy Friday. 3-day weekend. Remember, we're not only celebrating President's Day Monday, we're celebrating the birthday of Blessed Emily Gamlin. So keep that in your celebrations for Monday. We are really lucky today to have guest speakers with us today in this wonderful assembly. As I think all of you know, Providence High School is very, very unique. We are the only high school in the entire United States that's governed by a healthcare organization, Providence St. Joseph Health. So it makes us so unique, not just for our medical-focused students, but all of our students and our faculty and staff to have this connection. Providence St. Joseph Health, over the last few years, has helped create a well-being trust, which is a national foundation dedicating to advancing the vision of a nation where everyone is well, mentally, socially, spiritually, that everybody has strong health in that way. You guys know our tagline, of course, here at the high school is "You belong here." And that's all about feeling safe, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all those types of things. So this goes in line with us as a high school, this well-being trust. So Providence St. Joseph Health, in 2016, as a public charity with an initial seed endowment of $100 million, plus an additional $30 million was invested just here in California, okay? And that well-being trust is now investing in approaches that have the potential to model a way forward with good well-being for everybody. So again, we are excited to host this assembly today. We're going to have a chance probably for some interaction later, and I want to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Robin Henderson, who is the clinical liaison of Providence St. Joseph Health to the Wellbeing Trust. And it's her mission and the Trust's mission to improve the mental, social, and spiritual health of the nation. In this role, she provides clinical oversight for investments and programming, ensuring they are consistent with the mission and value of both of the organizations. She also is the chief executive of behavioral health for Providence, Oregon. So our sunny weather hopefully is a good thing for you. But we do want to welcome and give a good Providence Pioneer welcome to Dr. Robin Henderson.
Well, okay. First of all, I'm a little shorter than you are, but hey, we'll get there. It's my pleasure to bring you greetings from both the Wellbeing Trust and Providence St. Joseph Health. But before we begin the presentation, we would like to take a moment of silence for all of those who were killed or injured in the Florida shootings this week. We pray for their families, their friends, their administrators, and everyone who's been affected by this tragedy. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. So like I say, I bring you greetings from Providence St. Joseph Health. I work in Providence, Oregon, which is a little less sunny than what we have here, but we're all part of one Providence family, and it's so cool to get to come to Providence High School. I've been taking pictures all morning so that I can go back to my folks and say, did you know we had a high school? It's actually really, really cool. And as the parent of a 15-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son, who are sophomores and juniors in high school, I have a feeling that I understand a little bit about what your parents are going through right now. Did you know that 1 in 4 adults experience mental illness each year? So if you look around, that's 61.5 million Americans, and probably about, imagine if all those people right over there to the left of that bar, those are all folks who are struggling with some type of mental health issue right now. Did you know that most mental health concerns for kids start around the age of 14? And those are things that then progress across a lifetime. And that 20% of youth right now today are suffering with a mental health issue. 1 in 5. You have 5 friends, right? Pretty much. There are nearly 13.6 million of us living with serious mental health issues, including schizophrenia, major depression, and bipolar disorder. But there's also a lot more of us living with depression and anxiety and things that are readily treatable. As your lovely administrator said, I'm with the Wellbeing Trust and Providence St. Joseph Health, and the Wellbeing Trust is really charged with looking at the mental and spiritual health of the nation. And in times like this, it becomes even more important for us to focus on those types of things. We invest in programs that improve people's lives, and we invest in you. How many of you listen to iHeartMedia? iHeart, Kiss FM, some of the other radio stations that are out there? Have you ever heard Big Boy talk about Be Well? Big Boy? I was on Big Boy's show this morning. All right. Part of the reason that we invested in that, and part of that we have the hashtag Be Well, hashtag Be Heard, hashtag Be There. You all got excited about Big Boy, didn't you? That's awesome. Is because we wanted to start a conversation about mental health. And by starting that conversation in the places where you are, we're hoping that you'll join us in this conversation and take it over. Because the more we talk about mental illness, the less people have to suffer. We are dedicated to the education, support, and treatment of mental health, and that's part of why we wanted to bring you Project 375 today and partner with our friends there to begin to spread the message even more. So, while you may know him from his 12 seasons in the NFL and 6 Pro Bowl appearances, New York Giants wide receiver Brandon Marshall is also the executive chairman and co-founder of Project 375. While Brandon believes strongly that football is his platform, his work in mental health community is his true mission in life. Diagnosed in 2010 with borderline personality disorder, Brandon took an oath to help others living with mental illness or disorders. And as the other half of Project 375, Michi works hard to destigmatize mental illness and raise awareness for the mental health community through her tireless efforts to ensure youth across the nation receive prevention and early intervention services. Michi holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, along with certifications in behavioral health profiling. But her dedication lies with the hundreds of people she trains in youth mental health first aid each year, helping communities across the country better identify and intervene in crisis situations and connect youth to resources. Please join me in welcoming Brandon and Michi Marshall to the stage. Woo!
How you guys doing? Good. All right, I'm gonna start the clock because we're gonna go maybe 30 to 40 minutes and we're gonna do a deep dive into mental health. And this conversation that we're having today is probably the most important conversation that you guys are gonna have for the rest of your life. This conversation is gonna set you guys up to be healthy, effective human beings, healthy, effective husbands and wives and business entrepreneurs and doctors and lawyers. So I want you guys just to lock in for a little bit and take this conversation to heart. You know, and if it's not for you, it's going to be a conversation that's going to help your loved one, your little brother, your little sister, maybe even your mom or dad. In the Bible, there's this verse that talks about one day that the children will lead the parents. So, you know, I want you guys just to step up. We took a moment of silence for Parkland, right? And, you know, 2 things that come out, right? And I think it's important. I think the timing is amazing that we're here right after this tragedy. One, not every criminal, and this is part of the stigma, part of what we do at Project 375 is break down the stigma. Not every criminal deals with a mental health issue. And we see that all the time, right? This person committed this crime and this person must be mentally deranged, as President Trump says, right? So we got to be careful there. But then the other thing that jumps out, and it's on the other end of the spectrum, is, the signs. We hear about the signs so much, and we're hearing about these signs that happen down in Parkland. And Parkland High School is actually 15 minutes away from our house in Florida. Some of the kids that were there, and some kids that lost their life, goes to the church that we attend. So it really hit close to home. But when we hear about these signs, and it was interesting to hear one student say, well, we said that was the guy. That would be the guy that would do that. Were they equipped? Did they understand the warning signs or see the warning signs? And what did they do next? Or why didn't they do anything? Why didn't they say anything? What were they supposed to say? Right? So I think it's really important that we understand mental health, that we be curious, and we help each other out. We got the men's basketball team sitting over in the corner. I want to give a big shout out to them as they head down the road. They're going to a playoff game where it's a 3-hour drive. Hopefully you guys got your Twizzlers and your Gatorade. They'll be leaving early, so if you see them head out in another hour or so, just say a quick prayer for them. Hopefully bring us back a W. Also, we got the men's soccer team, boys soccer team, right? Let's go, let's go. Some thank yous. Let's get the thank yous out the way. Michelle from Providence High School, thank you so much for having us. Yes, this is big. Hey, you guys have a special one there. She's one of the main reasons why we're here, so make sure you take care of her. She's taking care of you guys, all right? And if you have any problems, anything, go see her. Dr. Robin Henderson, thank you so much. Providence High School students, thank you guys for being here. You guys are already, it's only been a few minutes, but you guys are first class. We've done a bunch of these around the country, and you guys are awesome, awesome. And Mr. Joe, I don't even know how to pronounce, I'm not even going to act like I know how to pronounce your last name. Shuto. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. And Mary Hanson and the team at Wellbeing Trust, thank you guys. You guys are probably the main reasons why we're here, so thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna dive into this because we only have a few minutes, and the last thank you is our team at Project 375, Carissa Johnson, Erica, and Emily. So literally, we just fly around doing this stuff, but they do all the work all day. We just do the easy lift, and that's sitting in front of you guys talking. So what are we going to talk about today? So my wife and I will share our stories together. I'll speak first, or she might interrupt me and rudely interrupt me and jump in and correct me, or if she has a point, she may jump in. So we'll share our story. We already talked a little bit about Parkland. I think there's enough said there. I'll just encourage you guys, if there's something going on, that you go talk to Miss Michelle or a peer, right? And just be real with one another. And the last thing that we'll do is, well, not the last thing, but one of the things that we'll talk about is, 3 basic things that you guys can do. Like, okay, what is the call to action when we leave here? And then we'll do something really special that we find that is very powerful. We'll open up for some questions and some discussion. If there's something you guys want to share later, we would love to hear it. So our story, right? 7 years ago, I was at McLean Hospital, #2 psychiatric hospital in the world, #1 psychiatric hospital in the country. That's in Waltham, Massachusetts, a small little town. Why was I there? You guys can Google that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you every single thing that I did, but my life was a living wreck, okay, and it was spiraling out of control. It was had a bunch of volatile relationships that I was involved in. and that's the story that you guys will read on the internet. But internally, I was hurting. I was depressed. I was living in isolation. I lived in Florida at the time, and we all know it's hot there. And it would be 100 degrees outside, and I would walk around with a hoodie on because I didn't want anybody to notice me, or I didn't want anybody to talk to me because I was really uncomfortable in my own skin. So there was that part of being uncomfortable, and the other part of just being just angry. And that led me to McLean Hospital. And I was there for 3 months in an outpatient program. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. The best way I can describe borderline personality disorder, it's an emotional disorder, right? Something can happen in this room right now. We all get, upset, we're sad, and it's valid, right? But me, if borderline personality disorder is out of control in my life, it will take me longer to get back down to baseline. Baseline being, okay, I accept what happened, now it's time to move forward, and now I'm okay, all right? It could take someone diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, also known as BPD, it could take them a day, it could take them 2 days, it could take them 2 weeks, it could take them 3 months, right? One of the part of the criteria of someone with BPD is they think black and white. So that's where mentalization therapy came in for me. So every day I would walk on the campus and I would go to dialectical behavior therapy. Dialectical behavior therapy is a therapy that helps you, that gives you the skills and tools that you may need, right, to be able to self-regulate your emotions, right? A lot of times you ever see someone get angry and upset, they start crying, and it could be something on that end of the spectrum. To the other end of the spectrum, somebody might think about completing suicide or taking their life, or someone self-harming themselves. I sat in circles every single day with young ladies or in boys that had bandages on their arms because they were self-harming themselves. So that's what dialectical behavior therapy did for me, and it does for so many other people. Mentalization therapy, like I said, deals with, being able to process the whole frontal lobe, the cognitive behavior side of things. It was also in self-assessment where I literally just sat in a circle, and I think this is something that you guys can do just with each other, and we do this naturally, but in a therapeutic setting, you sit in a circle and you literally talk about what's going on in your life, what's going on in that moment. So I did that every single day. I did a neurological evaluation to see if I was even capable of change, right? Sometimes there's things that's going on in the brain that is just, it is what it is. But they said, hey, there's no excuse, Brandon, you need to do the work and you'll be okay. So I didn't have any excuse after that evaluation. Also did a clinical evaluation where I sat there for 2 hours and I answered a series of questions, and that's where I got the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. But I have to say that was the most phenomenal time of my life, not only because I was able to identify with someone and I was able to look at the situation and say, oh, wow, that's not who I am. That guy who sits on the couch every single day, never talks, never laughs at, Kevin Hart, like he's hilarious. The Rock, they're hilarious, right? But I would see them, I would never laugh. I'm like, what's wrong? And it got to a point where I was like, oh, everyone else is laughing, just not me. Like, I guess I don't have a sense of humor. And I accepted that. And it wasn't until I was at McLean Hospital where I started doing things and getting outside of my box, and I realized, like, wow, that wasn't natural. That wasn't okay, right? So that's a little bit about my story. I get this question all the time, like, how do you have this dream at the age of 5 years old that you want to be a professional athlete? That's the only thing that I thought about. The only reason why I got good grades, and I'm being honest with you, sorry, teachers and staff and principal here, but it's because I knew I had to stay on the football field. And I have this personality, it's like, well, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it good enough. So I always tried to stay above you guys, or I know you're excellent students, but for me, I was like, I just want a 3.0 or higher. So I maintained that 3.0 from middle school all the way through college, right? But my dream was to make it to NFL. I would sit there and watch Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm like, man, I could do that right now. And my mom looked at me, she's like, son, you're 7 years old. I'm like, Mom, Barry Sanders just got stopped at the goal line. I would have scored. And I truly believe that. So at the age of 22, I didn't have to dream anymore because I made it. I could do anything I wanted. I could travel the world. You know, what's next? So I say all that because, you know, Tom sitting in this amazing house, 17,000 square feet, have some awesome cars outside, 3 dogs, a beautiful wife. So what was wrong? Thank you. You know what? Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about mental health because you guys are all connected to your feelings. Like, they're good. We're good, right? I saw the boys, the men in here, like, oh, I like that. You know, because men, we don't talk about those things. We don't connect to those emotions. So we are off to a great start here at Providence High School, I must say. But we see this all the time. And especially nowadays, we're seeing all these celebrities and all these singers and actresses, Demi Lovato, The Rock, all these people coming out saying, I deal with depression, I deal with anxiety, I tried to take my life. And then people sit back and say, how? You have everything. How, Brandon? You have everything. Well, the reason why is because it hits all of us. That's why. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much success you have gained. It doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, you're rich, you're poor, you're male or female, it's going to hit you. It hit Parkland. Do you think the only people who are dealing with issues right now are the people who lost a loved one? No, it's everyone in that school. So if it's not you personally diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, then it's your brother, it's your sister, it's your neighbor. And we live in a world where we're all interconnected. And it's important that we understand that. You know, social media is starting to build these little silos and bubbles where we're not really connected. But the reality is we're connected. And we will always be that way no matter how much technology comes our way. So it's important for us to understand that. It's going to hit us. And when it hits us, what are you going to do about it? If it's not now, it could be in college. If it's just not in college, it could be when you're 30. If it's not when you're 30, it could be when you're 40, 50. If it's not in your career, it could be in your marriage. It's going to hit your family. We speak about mental health all the time, almost daily. Everyone in our world knows who we are and what we stand for. We believe this is our purpose in life. And I'm not going to share this person's name because this is fresh, but yesterday we had a layover in Houston, and as I'm landing, one of my family members, and I would say this really, really close, this isn't like a fourth cousin or something like that, I get a call and I'm like, how are you doing? Well, I text them the day before, I said, how are you doing? He said, I can't talk right now. I said, okay, I was just calling, just check on you because I haven't talked to you in months. Someone really close. And they finally called me back yesterday and they said, well, can you talk? I said, well, I'm landing in a few minutes, I'll call you when I land. So I called this person really close. And they say, I'm at the hospital. I said, why are you at the hospital? They said, because such and such tried to take her life last night. This is someone really close. And, you know, there was all kinds of emotions that came up. One, it's, wow, like, this hit really close to home. And the other part was a little anger because I'm like, well, we talk about this every single day. Why wouldn't you come to us? Why wouldn't you talk about it? And then after the fact, when things hit the fan, why didn't you come to us and talk to us? Because there's still that stigma there, right? Someone in my family, and know that we stand for this and we talk about this every single day, and we're really proactive about it, to still say, well, let's go and evaluate the situation first, because we don't want to put a label on it and get the, anybody think that they tried to commit suicide. Let's try to figure it out first. Or it's not that big of a deal. They just lost a boyfriend, It's not that big of a deal. They just want attention. So we're all interconnected. This hits all of us, whether it's me as a patient, which I am and I was, or if it's a loved one, which it did. And there's so many stories that I can tell you, but I think it's time for all of us. And I'm looking at all of you guys, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior, and I'm telling you guys, get informed, okay? Take this conversation serious, because it's all around us. And I wish somebody came to my school or my home when I was younger and gave me this head start. So I know Michi, she's the brains in our family. She has a wonderful story and a lot of information. I know she has some things to say to you, but take it serious.
To lower the mic, I'm a lot shorter than he is. So Brandon mentioned how you could be the person that stands in the gap between a loved one or a family member or a friend even. I personally went to school for psychology. You heard a little bit of my background from Robin. I didn't know when I was in high school that I was going to marry Brandon Marshall. I didn't know that I was going to have a family member that completed suicide. I didn't know that I was going to have a family member that still to this day struggles with suicidality. It's real, and it happens every day, and it happens to the most unsuspecting individuals. Whether or not it'll be me in the future, I don't know. But take what Brandon said and take it to heart, because you could be the person that stands in the gap for that individual. I'm going to share little statistics with you, and this is the interactive part, so I really want you to answer back. But you heard some statistics from Robin about mental health. 1 in 5 individuals, 1 in 5 youth have a mental health disorder or diagnosis. There's about, you said 458 students? 458. 1 out of 5. Does anybody know what that number is?
91.
91?
Raise your hand.
91. That's correct.
Did you really get the answer right?
I did too.
Stand up. Who got it? Stand up. You got it?
Yeah. So that is correct. There is 91 individuals in this room right now. This gets serious. 91 individuals in this room right now. So probably from the railing over, maybe? Sorry?
You said the junior class.
The entire junior class, there you go. But that shows you just how many individuals could be living with a mental health disorder or diagnosis. That shows just how many individuals in your school alone could be struggling with something in silence, whether or not they sought help or not. 91 people in your school. Does anybody know how long it takes an individual from the first symptom of a disorder or diagnosis to seek help in years or months? 8 to 10 years, that's correct. Yeah. So from the start of a symptom, from the start of one symptom, it may take that individual who, let's say 10 years, let's say that they were 8 years old when they first started experiencing signs of anxiety. By the time they seek professional help, that individual is 18 years old. 10 years, there's a 10-year delay. So that individual has been suffering, living secluded, isolated for 10 years before they are able to seek help and get the resources that they need in order to live a healthy, effective life. Does anybody know how long a suicidal ideation lasts? How long is an individual suicidal? Years, months, minutes, seconds? Blurt something out, somebody. 2 years? 3 years? 2 weeks? 5 years? What if I said 15 minutes? 15 minutes. So if I go home after a long day and I'm sad and I'm frustrated and I think to myself, you know what? Maybe it would be better if I wasn't here. And in that 15 minutes, my mother, my sister, my best friend, my younger brother, my husband, my teacher, my coach checked up on me in that 15 minutes and asked me how I was doing and asked me to talk about whatever it was going on in my day. After that 15 minutes passes, I, more than likely, would no longer be suicidal. 15 minutes. How many people in here think that they could save a life?
We're superheroes.
I want everybody to raise their hand. Teachers included, everyone. Are there superheroes? Classmates, right? Are you a doctor? Police officer? No. You're an average, everyday, normal human being, and you can save a life, and you do that by being trained. It does not take a special person to save a life. It doesn't take somebody with a whole lot of accolades and a team of people. It takes one individual who understands the signs and symptoms, one individual who understands how to talk to somebody who has experienced a crisis. It takes one individual who's trained and can reach out and help and show a bit of compassion to save a life. So that's the reason why we're here today, is because we want to empower you guys. We want you guys to understand that, truthfully speaking, with the stigma that's in America today and around the world about mental health, Brandon said it affects all persons, black, white, young, poor, young, old, rich, poor. It takes a compassionate heart, it takes being knowledgeable, and it takes breaking down the stigma of mental health. This generation, not Brandon's and my generation, we're the old folks. Not your teachers, not your parents. This generation, you guys and your peers are going to be the generation that breaks down the stigma of mental health. And I wholeheartedly believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt. You guys have more compassion and more understanding of your emotions and the world around you than the people that have come before you. You guys are there for each other like no other generation we've seen. You're able to talk about things to one another and express your concerns to one another. But not only that, I believe that you guys see the compassion and you see the person behind the diagnosis. There's some things that I want you to take away from this when it comes to breaking down stigma, because these are things that you could do every day. When somebody says, "I'm depressed," does that add to stigma or diminish it? Yes or no? Add? It does. It adds to stigma. The reason why it adds to stigma is because I am not depressed. I am Michi. My name is not depressed. My name is Michi. Regardless of whether or not I'm depressed, I have a diagnosis of depression or not, I am still Michi. I still have a husband, I'm still a mother, I still love fashion, I'm still all of the things that I was prior to my diagnosis. So I encourage you and I ask you to no longer use first person. I am depressed, I am bipolar. Because in all fairness, that's not who you are, that's not what your mother or father named you. It's a diagnosis that you have, yes, and that's okay. But let's not refer to people by their diagnosis. Nobody says, "I am cancer." Nobody says that, right? That would be really awkward. So let's think of it that way. Another thing that you can do today is when you talk to your friends, you ask them specifically, "How are you doing? How are you really doing?" Truly, how are you doing? And if you know otherwise, continue to ask those questions. We know when our friends are struggling with something and don't want to be truthful or honest with what's going on with them, but we know deep down. So I ask you to truly uncover, peel back those layers of that onion and really ask your friends and your loved ones, those people that you know are going through something difficult. Be there for them, be a resource to them. Also, when you hear the word committed suicide, when you hear the words abuse, substance abuse, what does that make you think of? Abuse committed. What is it? What do those words stir up in you? Crime. Anything else? Violence. So we don't use the words abuse and committed when we talk about suicide or when we talk about mental health. And the reason being is because it has a negative connotation to it. It makes people automatically think that you're doing something wrong. And regardless whether you feel like it's right or wrong to do, we use completed and we use substance use. So those are the words that we use today to try and diminish stigma. So there's things that you can do in your everyday life to help individuals who could be struggling or living with, and that's another one, it's living with a mental health disorder, not struggling with, because they're living, and they're thriving, and they're fighting. But that's how we're able to diminish stigma and how we're able to be there for our loved ones and our friends even. And know that there's always signs of mental health, always. Some signs aren't what you normally would see. It's not what you think. The depressed individual is not always crying in a corner somewhere. Sometimes the the person who has depression is acting out in anger. Don't go off what you see on TV. Ask the questions. Ask your parents, ask your friends, ask the people around you. The number one protective factor for a youth that develops a mental health disorder is having a close relationship to one adult, not 10, just one. If you have a close relationship to one adult, just one, pay attention to that relationship, cultivate that relationship, be vulnerable and honest in that relationship. Because that could be the individual that helps you get through something later on, or helps another individual in your life get through something later on. So we say all that to say to you guys that a mental health disorder, a mental health diagnosis is not a life sentence. It's not something that you cannot recover from. It's not something that is going to be this looming dark cloud overhead for the rest of your life. It is something that you can grow through, you can grow from. It's something that can bring you closer together as a people. I mean, my husband and I, you can have a healthy, loving, effective life. You can be successful. You can be a Pro Bowl athlete, an elite athlete. You can be highly educated. You can be a mother and a father. There's all these things that we want you guys to understand, that just because there is a diagnosis, just because an individual is dealing with something in their life, that does not take away from that individual, and it doesn't take away for their potential for success. But the bottom line is we just have to be open and honest and vulnerable with one another. So now I ask, how many of you guys think that you could save a life? And I hope you guys actually believe that. Take that away from this conversation today, this mind over matter talk, that you right now here today can save a life. And thank you.
That was good, right? Yeah, good stuff. All right, 3 things, right? 3 things, and then we'll open it up for some questions, and we'll stay on track and be respectful of everyone's time. But moving forward, what can you do? Get informed. Michi threw out so many awesome things and statistics. What can you do? Get informed. We'll be leaving 50 of our mental fitness toolkits with Michelle. So all that information, and how we play into stigma and how we can do better not playing into stigma, all that stuff will be there for you guys. Make sure you pick up one, and be curious and compassionate. Your curiosity and compassion can save a life, can save your life. And talk about it. I just shared with you a personal story that just hit home just yesterday, and that was someone really close to me, right? And I'm not going to share that person's name or fully dive into that story because I haven't asked them for permission, but eventually I will. But what if, she talked about it? She asked about, suicide, how long? Literally got out of a relationship, went home, and boom. Right? So it's important for us to be vulnerable with one another and talk about it. Those are some things that you can do, so get informed, pick up the information, be curious and compassionate, and please talk about it. Please talk about it. So we started this not too long ago. We've done a bunch of these, but this is really powerful. We love doing this. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. And then also the most important thing is if, you just had something cool happen, or if there's something that you want to share about your story, your journey with mental health, or a loved one, a friend, we would love to hear it, So I will open it up to Providence High School now. And we will do this for a few minutes. Yes, sir. How do you approach someone that doesn't want to be approached? Michi, you can have this one. That's the right, did I say it right? All right.
So approach somebody who doesn't want to be approached. Everybody has an individual that's close to them. Sometimes it's not you. And especially us as parents and teachers, and even maybe older brother or siblings, you have to take a step back and realize that it's not about you. Don't take it personally. But you need to find an individual that is close to that person and that they are vulnerable with, and let them know that this individual needs help. Follow up and follow through. Make sure that they did ask, and if that does not help, then sometimes you have to take it to a higher up, whether it be a parent or a teacher or somebody who can really step in and lend a hand in the situation. It's always better to have that person around than to not have that person around at all. It's better for them to be mad at you than for them not to be here.
Yeah, the worst thing we can do is just turn a blind eye and not do anything, right? So if you're not the person that can be able to break through, then, find someone who can, and again, be compassionate and curious. A lot of times we get angry because we feel like the person's taking it out on us. A lot of times they're asking for help. Any other questions? Or if you just want to share.
So the question is, when I mentioned that a person is suicidal for approximately 15 minutes, that's how long the thought tends to linger. Will talking to them just in general, not about the actual issue or circumstances, be helpful? And the answer is yes. Being compassionate in general, showing that individual that you love them, that you care for them, that you're there for them, that there's future in mind, that you have a relationship with them that you care about, that in and of itself can help somebody really kind of take themselves outside of their issue and see past it a little bit. Unfortunately, the reality is that we do lose people to suicide, and sometimes you can't help. I said in my family that I had an individual that completed suicide. My mom is a PhD in clinical psych. I have a degree in psychology, yet we were not able to prevent it. So the reality is it does happen, but you can be compassionate and you can help that individual regardless of their circumstances, and you can talk to them just in general in loving terms. But be prepared to then take that conversation to somebody else who can help them with their mental health illness, diagnosis, or the issues at hand. Don't just skirt over the issue, but do what you need to do for the moment and talk to them.
Yes. I'll start off and I'll let Michi finish. I can speak for myself, as a patient. A lot of times, especially like men, that's why I said these guys are in a good place. Most men we don't really connect well with certain emotions, right? Like sadness, because we're supposed to be tough, right? A lot of times our hurt looks like anger, comes out in anger, So I think that the curious part is really big, and I continue to say it, is because when you see someone and it just looks like maybe their behavior is deviant, or they're not the same, a lot of times we really don't take the time to really think. So really be curious and just ask yourself, what else could be happening? What else can be going on in this person's life? And you'll find a lot of answers in just that moment of just being curious.
I'd also say that you have to understand somebody's typical behavior. There's what people consider normal, and normal doesn't exist. Let's just put that out there. But typical. So if I'm a highly emotional individual and I tend to let things get to me a little more than most, Maybe I cry a little too often, or things upset me more. As a friend, as a parent, as a teacher, you kind of know my typical behavior is that I'm a little more emotional. I get a little bit more riled up. When that person's behavior either exceeds that level of typical, okay, whether they get extremely upset, extremely emotional, crying every day, yelling, outbursts, or completely isolate, or maybe they're extremely, extremely happy on the opposite end. That's when you think, okay, this could be something a little bit more severe. So it's very tricky, and it's a very sticky situation, but you have to pay attention to that individual's typical behavior. What is typical for that person? Because for everybody, it's different. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I know a lot of people don't like to tell others that they're feeling depressed or suicidal because of how they'll react. So how should you respond when someone tells you that they're feeling like depressed or suicidal without like scaring them?
One more time.
Sorry, you know when some people, when they feel like depressed or suicidal, they don't want to tell other people because they're afraid of how they're going to react. So how should you respond when somebody tells you that they're depressed or suicidal?
I would say in a situation where someone tells you that they're depressed, or they're having feelings or symptoms of depression, I would say, one, you also can be vulnerable and let that individual know that, yes, I have had times where I felt very depressed and I felt very alone, and share your own personal stories with that individual so that way they don't feel alone. Also, you can let them know right off the bat, it's okay. A lot of people have issues that they're going through that don't want to talk about it. A lot of people are going through a lot of different things, and that's okay. Thoughts of suicide are actually extremely common, and a lot of people don't know that. A lot of youth don't know that. They think, I'm weird, or I'm out of control, or I'm crazy, and that's not the case, because people who think about it it's extremely common. It's more common than you would ever even imagine. But the individuals, the youth, especially somebody who is feeling signs of depression or other, they don't know that it's very common.
And to piggyback a little bit off of that, the last thing I would say on that question is validation. You know, everybody want to be validated. Nobody wants to be told that they're crazy. Nobody wants to be told that, you know, or just get over it. You know, you're okay, you'll be fine. Validation that's the first thing you should do, is validate the other person. So if they come to you with saying, hey, I think I'm depressed, you know, make sure that you validate that person. All right, we'll take 3 more. We'll take 3 more. All right. Okay, right here.
So there's a lot of protective factors. The number one protective factor is, okay, so the question is, there are individuals that don't have a relationship with one close adult. So how does that impact that individual? And there are situations where you don't have a relationship with one close adult. Move that to one person. Do you have a close relationship with one person? One person. But there's also a lot of protective factors. Having a close relationship with at least one adult is the biggest protective factor, but in combination with a variety of other protective factors. Having a spiritual connection, having a healthy diet, being in social circles that are beneficial to your morale, whether it be soccer, volleyball, chess, dance, ballet, whatever it is. Also having, what's another one? Did I say spiritual connection? Yeah. So there's a whole host of protective factors that in combination will help an individual out. that is just the number one, which is having a close relationship to at least one adult. But again, it could be having a close relationship to at least one person other than a peer.
Does depression need to be diagnosed?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go around self-diagnosing yourself, you know, and that's part of the stigma, right? We go around and say, oh, that person's depressed, or oh, that person is bipolar. A lot of us place these tags on people, and we don't even know what it really is. Like, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Well, what is borderline personality disorder? You know, people don't understand that there's a criteria that makes that up. And just because maybe one of them may be in your life doesn't mean that you're actually diagnosed with it. You know, so it's really important for us not to play into that stigma and not to self-diagnose or try to diagnose others. All right, one more, and then I have a big question.
Okay, how do you keep yourself from borderline?
Say that again?
How do you keep yourself from borderline?
How do I keep myself from borderline? Well, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and I went through an intense program, an outpatient program at McLean Hospital for 3 months. And I did dialectical behavior therapy, so I picked up the tools and skills to be able to self-regulate. Those skills didn't come to me naturally. You know, some of us don't, right? So dealing with anger, sadness, all of those emotions, I had to learn the skills that some people, it just comes natural, right? So I went through that, and now I understand. You know, I look at the criteria. There's 9. It takes 5 to be diagnosed. And I look at, like, okay, black and white. So for me, like, when I see, like, oh, man, I may be thinking a little black and white. Like, I almost, like, self-regulate myself. And I have different things in my life that holds me accountable, or things that I do when I feel that I'm not where I need to be. You know, so sometimes what I'll do is I'll talk to someone. In season, I know, because there's so much going on. Like, I play a volatile sport, and the business is absolutely ridiculous in a bad way, you know, and so I'm proactive in the season. So I'll speak to someone once a week in the season, you know, and then when I need to, out of the season, I'll reach out to someone. But a lot of it is I already have the skills and tools already in place, so I can identify it and kind of and adjust myself. So proactive is huge, you know. Diet, physically fit, and practicing mental fitness is key. That's what we talk about a lot at Project 375. All right, so we got a roll. This is great. Is there anybody that want to come up? Like, did anything happen here that you know, inside of you that you want to share? You know, your testimony, you know, with mental health. So this is not a question, but if you just wanted to share, sure. Oh, okay. Well, we'll take one more question, and then if I want you guys to think about anybody just want to be vulnerable and open up to us. All right. What's your question? Well, that's a great question. It's no different than anyone else. You know, that's why I said, like, it hits all of us. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be this big macho football player, and most people say that borderline personality disorder is a woman diagnosis, right? But me, this big macho football player, I'm diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So the way I would answer that is, it's no different than, you know, Ivy League, you know, kids at Harvard, or people in corporate America. You know, I do see, I wouldn't say this is a mental health thing, but maybe it is. But what I do see is a lot of athletes, even high achieving students, whether it's private school, Ivy Leaguers, we struggle with identity because of performance, right? We live in this performance-based business, right? So as an athlete, we have to perform every single day. As students, you guys have to perform. You guys are looking at where you at in your class, and there's outside pressure, right? So that stress, you know, it really creates a lot of unhealthiness, I would say. So, you know, the thing that I see in sports a lot is a lot of unhealthy people because of their mentality being one of performance, and it's not a healthy way to live. All right, anybody want to share their testimony? Anybody want to come up? Oh, here we go. Awesome.
I'll make it kind of quick because I have to go soon, but so a lot of people don't know, but my mom has to deal with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and so basically what happened was she was a part of the Bill Cosby conspiracies. I don't want to go too much into it because it's a lot of deep personal stuff, but she was kind of, you know, fine. She never had any like signs of, you know, PTSD or any problems until I was like about 12. And then something happened and she got like triggered, and so ever since I was 12, I've been kind of living with a mom that hasn't always been there completely. You know, I still love her and everything is like nothing's really too different, you know. Some of you have seen her, she's like an awesome woman. You know, everyone loves my mom, so she has a big giant afro, you know, just rocking it. And that's my mom, but living with someone that has PTSD is really challenging because a lot of the time, you know, something really small could set them off. You know, we're having a conversation at the dinner table, and then all of a sudden, you know, I say one wrong thing, and then she goes into this whole giant argument against me. And she doesn't do it on purpose. She can't help it because she's been bottling in this emotion that she's had for like 30 years. And it's finally coming out now, and it's unfortunate that it has to happen to us because I have 5 other siblings, and we all have to like kind of deal with it. You know, one of them's in college, 2 of them are in college, but it's really kind of unfortunate for my little siblings because I didn't have to grow up with having my mom kind of, you know, snapping at them and sometimes cursing them out. But it's getting better. She's been taking therapy classes and doing art. She's an artist, so she's really good at it, and that's been her kind of escape. That and also, you know, her kids. We do whatever we do, and she comes and supports. But if you guys really want to know a lot more, there's actually a documentary on Netflix called Seeing Allridge, which is about Gloria Allridge and Gloria Allred, and she's in it. She has a little small documentary part in it where she talks about her role in the Bill Cosby stuff. But yeah, that's my little thing.
The reason why that's so important, and thank you so much, that's our soccer star and our actor right there. Good job. Good luck today. The reason why that's so powerful is because that gives all of us freedom to be able to step up and say, you know what, wow, like if he can tell his story, I can tell my story, or I can confront it, right? That's why it's so important for Project 375 to do this, because what we found is when we speak, more people stand up and speak. There's people that stand up and talk, and you be like, what? I didn't know that was going on in your life, right? And it's only because you were brave enough to be able to say, you know what, this is what I'm dealing with, or this is what I dealt with. That's why that is so powerful. And when we had more time in the past, what we've done is, we had one school, there were 600 students, and literally half the kids stood up, said, I dealt with anxiety, I deal with anxiety, depression, just going on, people in tears crying. Because you don't know what's going on next to you. It's so free, right? And it's just the power of us, you know, understanding that we're all interconnected and sharing and being vulnerable. So.
Also, with that being said, that individual, I don't know your name, I'm so sorry. Elias now has 458 students that rally around him and that can support him. And there's not one individual in this room that cannot see the beauty in Elias and be able to be there for him if he was ever having a difficult day. So that's also why it's so important for us to be able to stand up and be vulnerable, because you never know what the individual is experiencing. But not only that, you have a whole team of individuals here, your peers, your teachers, your staff, that will rally around you and support you through whatever it is that you're experiencing.
All right, so thank you guys for your time. Thank you, Providence High School. Joe, do you want to wrap us up? I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name.
Thank you again to Dr. Henderson and certainly Michi and Brandon Marshall. You know, I'm a LA Rams season ticket holder, but I think I just became a Giants fan. Congratulations to everything you guys are doing. Really appreciate you being here. One more time for our guests. Block 6, is that the signal I'm getting? All right, guys. Happy weekend. You have one more class. Stay focused. Have a great weekend, everybody.